Welcome to From Adversity to Abundance, the go-to podcast for real estate entrepreneurs seeking not just to thrive, but to conquer with resilience and mental sharpness. Each week, join us as we dive into the compelling world of real estate through the lens of mental fitness, where challenges transform into opportunities. Get ready to transform your mindset and expand your understanding of what it takes to succeed in real estate. Let's explore these stories of triumph and resilience together.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and today we have with us Jose Berlanga. Jose is a real estate investor, author, and speaker, land developer, and has founded many companies and been through a lot of adversity that we're going to get into, and also reached a lot of abundance. Jose, how are you doing today?
Hello, Jamie. I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be fun. It's almost I feel like this is one where we've got to be careful about going down too many rabbit holes, because I think there's a lot it's going to be a lot of good content here and a lot of inspiration, as well as practical value for the listener, the active real estate entrepreneur out there who's going to face more adversity than they already have, or some additional adversity, as we all will. So we're not excited that you've been through adversity, Jose, but look, you have. So let's talk about it, talk about the lessons you've learned, and how, the listener can take some of that information and hopefully, apply that to their lives. Let's dive right in. First off, who are you today? In a little bit more detail, what are you up to today?
Well, you mentioned it, some of the basics. I am an investor, real estate investor, developer, entrepreneur, writer. Now I'm writing books, and you nailed it. Yes, I'm a walking, living adversity. As far as I can remember, and even through today, the last 50 years, I don't remember many things that ever happened the way I planned it. The way I envisioned them, but ultimately they worked out. And this is part of the lesson that there's so much wisdom, there's so much to learn behind that word of adversity and problems and setbacks.
Yeah,
which are impossible to forecast, impossible to prevent, impossible to avoid. I'm more of a believer over the years that it's better to get to improve your way of dealing with adversity, your way of tolerating, resisting, building up your pain tolerance than trying to avoid problems, because they're going to show up sooner or later, whether you look for them or not.
Yeah, that's a great
Personally and in business, and the more you run away from them, perhaps the more they will come to you.
Well, and I think it's really taxing to try to control what things you can't control, right? So, and to focus on what may happen. It's different. You can, like you said, you can't predict it, but you can get better at managing adversity and dealing with how you respond to it, and learn from it, and use that in a positive way, and use it so it can be fuel to help you get to quote unquote abundance, or even better, help you inspire others. And and that's really the point of our show today. So let's jump back into your backstory. I know around age 4 you had something catastrophic occur. So if you don't mind, could you pick it up from there?
Sure. And just to wrap that up, I mean, the trick of all this has been, like you said, to utilize some of those experiences to your advantage, to learn from them, not to hide, not to run away from them, not to turn them into a disaster, not to turn yourself into a victim of the circumstances.
Yeah, and just very briefly, you could take we've talked about this on other episodes, but the compounding effect that can be a massive factor in whether you spiral into a negative, pattern and overall life
Yeah.
circumstances, or it could go the other way where you can build off of the momentum you gained in a positive way and use that compounding effect.
I have met over the years so many people that went through some sort of a tragedy, setback. They lost a family member. They had something happened to them. They had a difficult upbringing. Whatever it is that occurred to them, and they get stuck on that.
Hmm.
They utilize that,
Hmm.
turn them into a person that they don't want to be. They
Right.
let problem take over their lives,
Yeah.
preventing them from becoming the person they're supposed to be.
Mm.
And this is something that we need to learn. Sometimes even go to the extent uh, of telling people don't try to just focus on being positive. Sometimes people say you just need to be positive to avoid some of these problems, and no, not necessarily, because things happen to you whether you're positive or not. I
Mhm.
talk about my experience getting back to when I was 4 years old.
Mhm.
I didn't know what positive or negative. I didn't know
Sure.
about positive energies. I didn't know about not looking for trouble, and still before I could recognize what type of mental frame to be, how
Mhm.
to act, how to avoid things from happening, the law of attraction. I was too young to even understand those things
Sure.
before things started hitting me from everywhere. So it's not about how you act. It's not about how you prevent, how you perceive the universe. Is really how you react to it. So yes, but from a very young age, I have a lot of clarity, by the way, in my entire life from the time I was
Mm.
4 years old. Incidentally, when you have an impacting situation like that at an early age, it gives you a point of reference where I remember the entire previous year when I was 3 years old. I
Mm.
mean, I
Mm.
remember my life very vividly from the time I was three.
Yeah. So
Some
for the listener, let's if you don't mind, what exactly what
It
happened?
was so it was a bus accident in Mexico. I lived in Mexico. It is a very long, interesting story that we won't have time to cover. One of those stories that they should probably make a movie out of,
Mm.
because a number of things had to occur
Mm.
in order for this incident to happen. Had this not occurred, we wouldn't have ended up there. Had we not ended up there, that wouldn't have happened. And
Mhm.
before you know it, this incident, where it was a tragic car accident on the road in Mexico, in the mountains of Mexico, and it's where there was an explosion. And as a result, I ended up in the hospital. Uh, in the next decade or so, I was in and out of hospitals. I
Wow.
was in and out of surgery. I had 60 some surgery, skin grafts,
Wow.
reconstructive surgery. I think I invested the next 10 years either in recovery or in the process of reconstructive surgery. So I was in and out of hospitals, switching schools because of that, going through the physical and mental aspects of
Wow.
this accident.
That's
But
huge.
it was very difficult because part of this subject of adversity is it was taxing every day, just dealing with the aspects of trying to belong, trying to be one more, just trying to be another one of the kids.
Right. Right. Just fit in.
Forget excelling, forget becoming better than anyone. I just wanted to be like the rest, and
Mm.
my early
Sure.
childhood was very difficult. I could not have the normal activities of a child. I could not go out in the sun. It was hard for me to wear a t-shirt because the sun exposure, my face had to be covered. I always had some form of um, a band-aid or
Hmm.
bandages covering parts of my body that were in the process of my skin, obviously being burned.
Hmm.
Had a lot of issues during the growing
Mm.
process because burn skin does not grow. I had different types of prosthetics in my hands, fingers, on my neck, ear. They were reconstructing constantly different parts of my body. And, you know, um, forget all the physical, the pain, the recovery,
Hmm.
the aspects of the hospitalizations, but also the humiliations. You know
Hmm.
how kids are.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single day. Of course, I grew up back in the 70s where
Hmm.
political correctness did not exist, from
Hmm.
adults to children,
Yeah.
and everyone in between always made fun of me, always laughed at me, always pointed at me. I
Mm.
couldn't go to the grocery store. Of course, my scars look a lot better after 60 some surgeries, but
Sure.
they look very impacting when I was a small kid.
Yeah, I mean that's such a formative period. I mean it, not to say it wouldn't be challenging as an adult, but maybe if that happens when you're 40 years old, you've kind of established your identity and it might be a little bit easier. But I mean, yeah, you don't have the tools to even know how to navigate that. And like you said, you mentioned switching schools constantly and then also being in and out of school to be in the hospital. You're not likely establishing long-term friendships and it's just from a social standpoint, uh, just
That was
super
difficult.
challenging. Yeah.
Meeting friends again, earning my right to be part of a group of kids, getting kids to like me.
Mm-hmm.
I developed this ability as well to socialize, to get people to ignore the way that I look. That was a tough lesson
Okay.
early in my life, to get people to just not look at my skin, to not
How
look
did you
at the
do that?
scars.
How was that
Through
would you
my personality, through
okay.
my I developed a certain charm. I developed a certain strategy to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
a certain social skill, let's call it, that came
Mm-hmm.
very handy, by the way, when I grew up in the business world,
Mm-hmm.
where I was always told, hey, the initial impact when I saw you
Yeah.
was, oh my God, look at that guy. What happened? Let me go ask him. And they would. What happened to you? People were very blunt, very,
Mm-hmm.
very direct. Even I couldn't go to the mall without even adults coming over and saying, "Oh my God, look at your poor little kid. What happened to?" I mean,
Mm.
it was a big deal. It was
Sure.
nonstop. I lived with that every single day of my life
Right.
for a decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
It was very intense. It was very annoying. So I just learned to ignore it,
Mm.
to walk away. No, nothing. I'm fine. Nothing. I'm fine. It's not that I didn't want to talk about it. It's just that it became very annoying at some
Mm.
point.
Yeah.
Of course, the jokes,
Sure.
thousand jokes every day, the bullying from this to that, it was nonstop.
Yeah.
So I just did it through jokes, through being funny, through being charming, through avoiding
Gotcha.
the subject,
Yeah.
through through being smart
Mm.
about it, through changing the subject and getting people to have some interest in
Yeah.
whatever it is that I was saying.
Right. Gotcha.
And it helped develop my ability to communicate as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
So
and
so yeah, it was a series of steps that
mhm.
allowed me to navigate
Yeah.
through my childhood.
Got it. Well, and I know, you've reached multimillionaire status in several different industries, and so we're going to get there. But that's somehow you were able to turn things around and um, and just reach quote unquote abundance. And I always like to throw in the caveat that Jose, you're going to have more adversity in your life. I'm going to have more adversity in my life. Just because you have financial and maybe health abundance now doesn't mean that you're never going to face more adversity. So there's all kinds of ups and downs like we talked about already. But the fact is you somehow from a mental standpoint must have used this adversity to to grow beyond just your, being funny and communication. Clearly you've been able to pull yourself out of this and like you said, it was a series of things and it took time. How long did you kind of, I imagine it initially 4 years old. I mean, you probably did have that sort of victim mentality for quite a while, I would guess. I mean, how long would you say you were kind of in that victim mentality? And then And then was it a switch, or was it just a gradual change to become more empowered?
It was instantaneous. I never allowed myself to be the victim from
Oh,
day
wow.
one. From
Okay.
day one. One day I will write a book. Speaking of the fun part of my life now that I'm writing, I will write a book with all the details, because my accident was not a normal accident. It was a very tragic. I was burned alive and left burned alive for hours before we got medical attention. It was
Wow.
so the story goes on and on, but the to answer your question, my mental adjustment
Mhm.
was instantaneously
Wow.
the moment a few days into it, being in intensive care while they're
Mhm.
trying to keep me alive, which I
Mhm.
did die for a little bit there,
Wow.
but while they're trying to keep me alive, from that moment,
Mhm.
and hear this out because I don't think I've ever said it.
Mm.
This is a subject that seeing my parents' pain at
Mm.
the age of 4, seeing what they were going through,
Mhm.
forget me, forget the pain, forget
Mhm.
the impact that I
Yeah.
had just encountered, seeing what they were going through,
Mhm.
and the shock that they were going through, and the pain that I saw in their eyes, in their um, in themselves,
Mhm.
immediately made me change my attitude
Mm.
and make them feel, convince them that I was fine. So
Wow.
at the age of 4, I've never said this in my life, and I don't know why. The way you probably addressed the question, nobody has asked me at what point did I avoid or turn from a victim
Yeah.
into a powerful state
Yeah.
of mind. It was instantaneously.
Mm.
No one has ever asked me,
Wow.
because I don't think anybody has had uh, that particular thought.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I became a grown-up at the age
Mm.
of 4.
Wow.
From that point on,
Yeah.
I have never cried since then. When I
Really?
saw my parents in tears and in pain, I gave myself that command not to suffer,
Mm.
not in pain, not to show my pain.
Mm.
Be strong, to be courageous, and to protect their
Mm.
feelings. And from that point on, I have acquired this personality of let's go get them, let's do this, let's
Love
get
that.
out of this problem, whatever it is that gets thrown at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that inside I'm not screaming and crying
Sure.
inside, but I don't show it.
Got it. Well, and we've had many amazing guests on the show with all with different stories and different versions of adversity. And typically the focus, shifting from self to others is a huge part of that I guess I'll say healing process or growth process, or switching from, you know, problem to opportunity, or adversity to abundance, or victim to, powerful person. And but usually that's a process. So that's I
I
think
didn't
it's just,
have time to process
yeah,
this.
yeah, got it.
Just had to be done. And from that point on, I never looked back and feeling sorry about myself.
Hmm.
Even when people would make fun of me or make comments or ask me on the streets,
Hmm.
I saw my parents more mortified than
Mm.
me. So
Gotcha.
I would say, hey, don't worry about it. I'm cool. I'm
Yeah.
fine. And I would walk away. I had to be the strong one
Mm.
from that point on.
Yeah.
And I carried that for the rest of my life. It gave
Yeah.
me the strength to just deal with whatever was occurring, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that I enjoyed any of them.
Right. Right.
Speaking, I mean, of adversity, everything was difficult for me, not just the
Hmm.
hospital. I'm ADD. I'm
Mm.
dyslexic. I
Mm.
skipped a year, one of the most important formative years, when you're learning how to learn, when you're
Mm.
learning how to read, when you're learning how to capture certain basic things. I skipped all that.
Because you were in the hospital, is that why?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The
Gotcha.
first year, just for an entire year, I was in
Wow.
the hospital in
Yeah.
intensive care. Then I was in and out, in and out. So I was
Yeah.
skipping a lot of school, and combined with my learning disabilities,
Hmm.
from ADD to dyslexia to distraction to daydreaming to anxiety to
Hmm.
stress, all of those things. So that my accent wasn't the only thing that was difficult. Learning
Sure.
was difficult. Going to a new school was difficult. Dealing
Yeah.
with teachers and new subjects, and
Yeah.
so all of that became
Right.
very, very
Yeah.
difficult. But
I still, for my own, this is, you're not supposed to compare, I guess, but just, I switched middle schools in the end of sixth grade. This is not a, not a major thing in the grand scheme of things, but it was very stressful at that time because middle school kids can be really challenging. And again, this is just a normal parents moved, not a huge thing, but the fact that you had to switch schools so many times and start over at such a vulnerable age at different ages, but yeah, that's massive, just that social impact. So fast forward to say, let's maybe age 18 or 20, somewhere in there. What does your life look like? How did things change or improve for you since, from 4 to 20?
uh, yes, yes. Actually, that is, of course, the opposite. That was a gradual process of understanding what I wanted out of life.
Hmm.
I knew that something that the back of my mind always told me was that to compensate some of my problems, I needed to become successful.
Hmm.
Part of the distraction process, part of people not looking at me because
Hmm.
of my physical appearance or because of my story,
Yeah.
I never used it. I never used it to do what I needed to do. I did the opposite, distract the audience, and started doing better in school. I was never a good student, by the way, but I managed to get through school and
Hmm.
to graduate. But I always wanted to be in business. I
Hmm.
wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't have the confidence. A lot of people asked me particularly, how did you gain the confidence to start your own business? It
Hmm.
was quite the opposite. I didn't have the confidence to go ask for help,
Hmm.
like a job. I didn't
Oh,
know. I
interesting.
tried, but I was treated funny and different.
Sure.
And I was asked questions that were very intimidating.
Huh.
If my accident would hurt my ability to
Right.
produce,
Right.
the kind of
Interesting.
questioning I got back in the 80s when
Yeah.
I was trying to get a job.
Right.
Uh, they were annoying, they were offensive.
Mm.
I said, no, I'm going to create my own future. I'm going to
Mm.
start something. Thankfully, my father had um, a lot of experience in different fields, and through his contacts, with his help, with his
Hmm.
knowledge, I started a business very early on. As I came to the United States to go to college, and
Okay.
I immediately started the business world. So
Okay.
that led from one business to another to another. I
Okay.
never stopped. I
Mm.
started focusing a lot on making money.
Yeah.
In retrospect, now I see it as part of my journey, and part of the mistake
Mm.
in my journey, interestingly enough, was focusing on the money part.
Mm. Okay.
I was
Talk
too
about that.
young. Yeah, yeah. I think that part of the subsequent failures in my business trajectory in my career,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, I've lost everything more than once. I've had to start again in the business world, which was very painful, just as painful as my childhood. That was
So,
terrible.
so I don't want to, is as specific as you want to get, feel free, but you're saying you went from like maybe multimillionaire status to almost nothing or,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There were a couple of moments in time where I went from multi-millionaire to worth negative. You
wow.
know, where my debt was bigger than whatever I owned. But the first experience of losing everything
Hmm.
was when I was very young. I my business did very well. I thought I would remain in the oil and gas and the
Hmm.
machinery for the oil and gas exporting business.
Hmm.
It started doing very well. The industry changed a lot, and that's a long story how that business eventually collapsed. But this was very, very impacting to me because I did not know how to face this this problem, I did not know how to deal with having to start again.
Hmm.
I thought that was the end of the world for me. I
Hmm.
thought I would never ever get back on my feet and start another business, or where, or how, or
Yeah.
uh, what was the next step.
And what age was that when that fell apart?
I was probably in my early 20s
Okay.
when I
Wow.
already achieved a certain level of success,
Yeah.
and maintaining the company and maintaining the lifestyle, and reinvesting, trying to salvage that business. Before you know it, I ran out of money,
Hmm.
um, and moved on to other things. Little by little, I got back on my feet. For part of this message is knowing and understanding that there is life after
Mm.
uh, this type of failures.
Hmm.
Doesn't appear like it in
In the
retrospect.
mo. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I look back and I go, wow, that was quite an amazing experience, learning lesson. But
Yeah.
at the time, you feel like it's death.
Right. Right. So what
Yeah.
did you do? How did you rebound after that initial business failure in your early 20s? What did you look around at, who's in my network, or what were some of the lessons you took from that and were able to apply to rebound?
Yeah, well, a little bit of time.
Hmm.
Uh, you have to mourn your loss. You have
Sure.
to feel the pain. I'm not
Yeah.
going to give anyone the advice of not feeling anything, because that's just part of the process. You go through kind of a losing everything is very
Yeah.
impacting to your
Sure.
life. You go through a depression, you go through a period of sadness, of fear of what is the next chapter in my life. Where do I go from this?
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily feel, and we'll get back to the money part of part of this failure, was that I was focused on making money rather than finding a purpose and
Right.
finding
No,
a
that's a
mission.
key point. Yeah. So you mentioned, I mean, you've mentioned that a couple times really now. So you were too focused on the money, making money, which, making money is great. But it sounds like you're saying making money should be treated more as an effect, as an outcome or
As a
some, as a
consequence, yes,
consequence. Right.
as a
Um,
collateral damage of your effort. But
yeah.
at that point, I didn't feel that I had any specific skill. This is
Mm,
what I fear the most.
mm,
As an entrepreneur, a
yeah.
lot of people think that um, you have to have some sort of special knowledge about an industry or a
Right.
product. And I didn't. I
Right.
knew people. I knew how to put deals together, how to get along with others.
Yeah.
And I did not know what my own skill was. I had
Mm,
not really identified that
okay.
putting businesses together, it's not about being an expert about anything, or any given area. I was always, in my earlier years in my career, I was very concerned about me not having an actual profession. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't an engineer. I wasn't an architect,
Hmm.
or something of value
Hmm.
that that was self-explanatory, where I could either go and get a job doing that
Right.
specific thing. I
Right.
didn't know how to code. I didn't have one talent
Yeah.
that I could go and sell.
Right. So there's a
And that
lack
was
of
very,
security and a lack of identity. Uh,
yes, yes. Some people are born with a clear mind as to what
mhm.
they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
Later I understood that I was good at selling,
Okay.
good at getting along, good at building networks, good at
Yeah.
building relationships.
Building
And
rapport.
that's
Yep.
to answer the question, getting back to the question,
Yeah.
that's how I started getting back
Okay.
into
Well,
business.
tell me if this is too big of a leap, but it sounds like, that those were skills that you had gained from recovering from your accident as a child. You mentioned focusing on your humor and your communication skills. And so it sounds like that's what you were able to employ in your early 20s when you hit rock bottom for the first time financially. And so to rebound, you were able to start building rapport with people, expanding your network and focus on selling. So speak to the finding your purpose though. I mean, was it simply you used your skill set, um, you identified what you were good at and kind of took it step by step, or was there some very, intense search for your purpose that you found, or what was that process like?
Well, that took even more years, and hence why I kept losing businesses. I think that I
Gotcha.
kept focusing because I started other while I was on top the very first time
Hmm.
in the machinery exporting company. I made a lot of friends and I made a lot of contacts that were in different fields.
Hmm.
I was a very friendly guy that was always there for others.
Hmm.
That's what saved me. When my business went
Yeah.
down, disappeared, and lost everything,
Yeah.
and I thought I had no talent, I thought I had no skill,
Hmm.
I realized that a lot of people respected me already
Okay.
because they
Well,
knew my work ethics.
yeah.
They knew that I was a responsible, hardworking, disciplined guy who showed up on time,
Right. Right.
did what he said he would do, who
That's
was
huge.
always there for others.
Right.
And I started getting, now, and I didn't even realize this at the time,
Hmm.
but I was already respected in the business
Okay.
world, unbeknown to me,
Yeah.
where people started to, hey, come help me with this. I'm trying to put this deal together.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know about business. Before you know it, I had already mentored others
Mm.
at the early age of 20 without even knowing it. I was
That's
already,
really big. I mean, I just listened to a podcast last night. It was on the Lewis Howes School of Greatness, and the guy who works with him on his personal brand was talking about really how you don't need 1 million followers to build your personal brand. Personal brand is not, it's more about serving others. And he was saying you find your own, uniqueness and use it in the service of others. But really what his a big point was that what you're saying, which is right now around you in your immediate surroundings, you have people that you deal with every day, and that's really what gets to your reputation, is how you show up every day with integrity, like you said, doing what you say you're going to do, following through. So you didn't know that you were building your reputation, and before that you would need that would come in handy once you hit rock bottom. But that's doing the right thing in
yeah,
and day out, because
people
that.
were watching. People
Right.
were watching, and I wasn't aware. They were seeing me
Yeah.
religiously get up and go to work at an
Yeah.
early
So you're
age.
building trust is what you're building.
Yes, yes, yes. And before you know it, how I got back into the business world is because people started coming to me as a problem solver, as the guy.
Hmm.
I became known for the guy who gets things done. Hey,
Yeah.
Jose, I'm starting this business. Help me out. How do I raise money? How do I find this distributorship? How do I and I was known as a person who could put things together.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
could mold and get the right person for the right job. See,
Sure.
entrepreneurship is misunderstood because we feel that we need a specific know-how. And what you need to know is the language of numbers, the language of people, know
Hmm.
how
Yeah. Yeah.
how to find the right team and
Hmm.
assemble the right team
Yeah.
to get somewhere. Look at some of today's billionaires. They're
Right.
not necessarily doing the job themselves.
No.
They're bringing in the people that
Sure.
can get things done and can get you to the next level.
Yeah.
And I had that talent without even knowing it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily have an idea of a specific business.
Hmm.
But when
Right.
someone, in most businesses, there's this technical side and
Yeah.
then there's the business side. People identified me as the business side. And
Got it.
people had a good idea, had a technical idea.
Right.
Let's fast forward because I got involved in a number of in the food industry, in manufacturing, in distribution, in the paper industry, in the travel industry, in the car, you name it. Even in industrial tires, I was a distributor at one point. I was in the chemicals, distribution. I did so many things that I was involved with. I owned a magazine at one point.
Mm.
I was either an investor or part of a startup and this and that,
Hmm.
and I was always involved in a
Yeah.
number of things.
And you've done.
Eventually,
Go ahead.
for example, my next, and I failed several times, not only four times, four big times, four um, events where I lost millions. But in between, there were other minor failures. Eventually, my brother and I started a construction company, him being the technical side, again,
Uh-huh.
coming to me for business advice and
Sure.
investments.
Okay.
That's how we started our next
So
venture.
what specifically did he need help with? Like marketing or
Everything. He
invoicing?
did not know
Yeah.
how to
How to run a
start,
business.
build a business.
Got it.
We knew this because obviously, as my brother, we always knew that he wanted to build homes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had no interest. I had
Yeah.
interest in making money and building
Yeah.
businesses.
Right.
But he said, "Hey, it's time. We know we've talked about it.
Right.
I want to build homes, and I'm ready."
Mhm.
He had gained some experience at a working for the city as a plan checker, and
Mhm.
how do we start? So I jumped in and I had a little bit of capital to start the company, and I put the systems in place and the accounting in place and
Mhm.
all the procedures
Yeah.
of how to start this business. And we built it into a pretty decent sized company at one point
Nice.
that did, a couple of hundred houses a year, 100+ million a year in
Mm.
revenues. And uh,
Nice.
until the next chapter, of course, the financial crisis, where
Oh
again
yeah.
we lost tens of millions of dollars in a very short period of time, which was
Wow.
another extremely painful experience.
Wow.
But to wrap up, I feel that a lot of these obstacles that I was facing, it came as a result of me trying to build a financially strong company
Okay.
rather than a company with meaning and a message behind it,
Okay.
in a mission that went beyond dollars,
Okay.
the dollar signs, the famous dollar signs.
Right.
That was a big focus in the early stages of my career,
Right.
and I think it kept hunting me at
I
the end of
see.
the day, coming back to me, sending me a message
Mhm.
that it's not all about the money.
Okay. So what's an example of a business that you've created and run that's more purpose driven?
Um, well, even those that failed,
Mhm.
when they started being successful, perhaps
Yeah.
were because I was there not just to make money.
Got it.
I was there to help the circumstances.
Yeah.
Even those that eventually either failed or
Mhm.
encountered major
Yeah. Challenges.
setbacks,
Sure.
they began by me wanting to participate in helping the main objective
Mhm.
in the business.
Got it.
The moment I started getting too emotional about the dollars,
Yeah.
uh, something went wrong. And I can say that time and time again in the different businesses that I've participated.
Yeah.
Now, you do need, make no mistake, you need money to
Yeah.
make
Right. You need
need
it,
money to
and you need
stay.
cash flow and profit, monthly, right? Or it's not going to last.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil,
Yeah.
whether we like it or understand it or not. Yes, we need capital. We need to
Sure.
need revenues, but it doesn't have to be the only thing that
Right.
you
Right.
focused on. You
Sure.
have to focus on a good quality product. You have to focus on understanding your consumer, your
Right.
audience, understanding how to differentiate yourself from the competition. I've not been in a business that didn't have competition because I've
Mhm.
never invented anything. I wasn't blessed with great ideas. I'm not a genius.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who has been in industries
Right.
uh, that weren't saturated, let's call it.
Sure. But I mean,
Everything I've been in has a lot of competition, so I had to fight my way through.
yeah. And I would guess that a lot of the reason that have been successful in these different competitive industries has to do with the trust you built with people and your personality and your vision versus the skill that you have with regard to maybe your brother's craftsmanship. I'm not putting your brother's skill set down at all, but it's really hard to stand out as the best craftsman if there are 1,000, craftsmen out there. I'm just using that as an example, but 100 builders in your town, it's hard to be the best. But if you've built trust and relationships with people, that can really drive revenue and help your business be successful. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. You need that, and I would go to the extent of saying that they're both as important because if you're
Gotcha.
a good operator,
Yeah.
if you see most successful businesses, they are rarely consisting of one person.
Yeah.
You need the creative aspects of a business, which is part of what I talk about in my books. Um, you can be a great business person, but if you don't have the product,
Right.
if you
That's
don't have
true.
the technology, if you
Yeah.
don't have the vision, if you don't understand what you're selling and the product that you want to represent and
Sure.
take the market and build a company and a business around it,
Yeah.
you can be the best business person
Hmm.
and and you have nothing to sell, and vice versa.
Yeah. Vice
You
versa.
can be
Right.
a
You need
genius,
both.
but if you don't know how to raise money and if you don't know how to put systems in place
Yeah.
and you don't know how to run
You know how to
people,
sell or anything. Right.
then you will be stuck with that idea for the rest of your life and
Right.
it'll go nowhere. So I
Sure.
think you need both. And
Got it.
rarely do you have one person that has all of the skills necessary: the
Sure.
vision, the product, the invention, the marketing, the
Yeah.
personality, the understanding of numbers, knowing how to grow,
Right.
understanding growing pains,
Mhm. Yeah.
and how to
So
manage.
you did home building. What else have you done specifically in real estate?
Well, after the financial crisis in 2008, which we began seeing the effects in 2007, where our revenues went from, gosh, I mean, we're selling 10 plus million a month and profiting perhaps in our industry, 10, 12% a month to zero. I mean, from one month to the other, all of a sudden, it's like somebody turned off the switch.
Wow.
And it was horrible. It was horrible. We were all speculating. We were buying land too expensive. We were all starting to make mistakes just to maintain, to keep, uh,
Mm,
remain in the business.
right.
But after those years, which the mandate, the objective was just to stay in business. At some
Mhm.
point, the shift uh, kicked in from making money to just surviving. You go
Yeah.
into survival mode in business, trying to manage the resources that you have, because managing a monster that requires that amount of cash and the size of overhead and the cash needs that are represented were monumental. And we got to a point where this company was, although on books we were still multimillionaires in the real marketplace. If we wanted to sell what we had on our books, we were in the negative. We were worth
Hmm.
negative in
Hmm.
the minutes,
Got it.
because there was no market. I mean, you may have something that's worth $10 and you owe seven. So you
Right.
think you have $3 in this deal, but you can't even get the seven in today's market. So,
Right.
and we all understand this in real estate. So in books, we were still very bankable. We were
Sure.
a a business that was alive,
Hmm.
but in reality, our business could
Yeah.
not sell any of our land or any of our homes.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's like, I
We,
mean, we get like a, broker price opinion on a particular property, and uh that's all fine and dandy, but the market will tell you what it's actually worth, right?
exactly. If
Um,
nobody's willing to pay for your product, it
yeah.
was horrifying. It was difficult.
Hmm.
I was very, very mentally drained at this point after having built so many businesses
Yeah.
and invested so many years building things just for something overnight to occur and wipe out you
Hmm.
know, your activity,
Right.
your wealth. And so it took years to phase out of this and to recover and to rebuild it. But we did.
Okay. So you rebuilt
Little
the
by
home
little,
building business. Um,
from scratch. I mean,
gotcha.
there were we were multiple times. We were hours away from going out
Hmm.
of business. There were
Wow.
many days where this was depressing. This was taxing on. I didn't sleep for
Sure.
years. Where you wake up any given morning and you're overdrawn a couple of $1 million in your different accounts, and you have to
Yeah.
figure out how to cover them
Yeah.
and talk to bank. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
you have a new job.
Entrepreneurship is a hot, sexy buzzword these days, and it can have a lot of benefits, and give you freedom and success and all that, but it's not for the faint of heart, and it comes with a
Oh
lot
no,
of
no, no,
stress.
no.
Big roller coaster.
Your tolerance to stress, your tolerance to pain, uh your ability
Yeah,
to triage, to figure
right.
out, what do I, because there's 300 problems and 3,000 things to
Yeah,
do.
you're not
Which
going to get
ones
to
do
them.
I pick just
Sure.
to make it through
Right,
tomorrow?
right.
This is an
So,
incredible talent that not every person has.
right.
So we got out of this one day at a time, one day at a time. We figured out how to
Yeah.
flip things and move things around and decompress the size of the company. One day, one random day, a few years later, we made it through. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves in a beautiful position without even knowing it. Again, we were one of the handful companies that had made it through.
Hmm.
Everybody
Wow.
was, everybody had gone out of business.
Right, right.
And the public ones were not even in our niche market. They were another
Okay.
outside in the suburbs. So out of nowhere, we find ourselves somehow as one of the couple of survivors in our market.
Hmm.
That's where we began to grow and take
Okay.
it. They always say, "Hey, if you can just make it through the rough years,
Right.
there's you can make a killing." Well, yeah, it's easier said than done.
Sounds good, right?
You have enough cash to do it.
Right.
If we all want
And
to make it through.
which market are we talking about?
The single family inner city. We were
Gotcha.
predominantly inner city
Uh-huh.
builders,
Got it.
and most of them were not a business
Got it.
because they were predominantly smaller companies. The bigger
Hmm.
companies, the public companies that, although
Yeah.
they lost gajillions of dollars, they had
Hmm.
the ability to do that because they can raise institutional funds and they
Right.
have access to other means, other
Capital
sources,
sources. Yeah.
and we didn't
Um,
have them.
sure. And so I've got a few questions here to knock out before we wrap up. So before we get there though, what do things look like for you today? I know you have the one book that has been out for a bit, The Business of Home Building, and then you have another book that's coming out shortly. You want to talk about that book and what else you have going on?
Sure, sure, absolutely. Those I'm what I'm experiencing now. It's kind of a process of reinventing myself, as we all do at some point in our life, and we need
Hmm.
to recognize at what stage of our lives we are. And
Hmm.
I'm at that point where now our business is much more diversified,
Okay.
still heavily invested in real estate,
Okay.
but now it's not just home building. Now it's land development. Now it's commercial, multifamily. We're doing. You mentioned that you do a lot of single family rental
Right.
investment properties. We
Yeah.
build communities and we keep them within our company and
Okay.
rent,
Like
what's
build
called
to
build
rent.
to rent,
Yeah. Sure.
so we have a single, so we've noticed, like many other companies, that there's a trend of
Hmm.
people who don't want to live in an apartment or
Right.
mid-rise or a condo. They want to live in a single family home, but they
Sure.
don't want to buy it. They can't buy it. They don't have the down payment. So
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of that in a little bit of everything within real estate and other investments and diversifying
Yeah.
to the best of our ability. But I'm also beginning a new journey of uh, understanding my journey,
Hmm.
putting it on paper,
Okay.
sharing these ideas, mentoring others that are starting in the business world to understand some of
Hmm.
uh, these steps, some of these problems that they're going to encounter, and how
Sure.
to be okay with them, how to understand the realities of entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And this book talks a lot about it,
Hmm.
the business of home building.
Hmm.
Incidentally, it's not just about how to build homes at
Mm.
all. As a matter of fact, it's not about building homes
It's
at
it's the
all.
yeah, it's the
It's
business,
about,
right?
correct. It's about how to build a business that either builds homes or builds anything else. It can
Yeah.
be utilized. The information is um, is very general
Hmm.
because the business world has similarities.
Sure.
Building homes or building anything
Right.
or
A lot of principles that you can transfer and apply to other industries. That
correct.
makes sense.
Correct. That all the basic fundamental principles
Yeah.
are similar. So this book tells you a lot about the realities
Do you
of
have a
how.
name for the second book that's coming out or not?
Yeah, Dirt Rich.
Dirt Rich.
Coming out very soon. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, book should be
Gotcha.
coming
Okay.
out. This is more about land developing, land investing,
Hmm.
speculating in the world of land, and the meaning, the deep, deep meaning behind land in the world of real estate,
Hmm.
in our economy in general, how everything that represents this trillion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar industry of real estate,
Hmm.
it all begins with a selection, with a proper selection of a piece of dirt,
Hmm.
piece of
Interesting.
land,
Yeah.
and how cities develop and how communities develop and
Yeah.
what
That's
it
really,
means to all of us. It's a
you've
great book.
you've piqued my interest with that one. That's interesting. Um, Before I get to these questions, one more. With regard to, now you're more diversified, but what advice would you give to a more novice entrepreneur, someone starting out? People love to talk about multiple streams of income, but what are your thoughts on whether someone without capital, without wealth, whether they should try to diversify out of the gate or focus on one thing?
No, no, absolutely. When you're in your earlier phases of your business career is quite the opposite. Diversifying is when you're starting to get out of the day-to-day
Hmm.
activity. When you're on your way out, when you're on your way in, is the opposite. Focus, focus, focus on one thing. Find that one thing.
Hmm.
Become good at it. Become an expert. Do the best that you can. Beat the competition. Differentiate yourself. Get obsessive,
Hmm.
compulsive over it.
Yeah.
Find that one mission. I tell the early entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs, to figure out focus is a word that is overused and
Hmm.
misunderstood.
Hmm.
Um, we think that working hard is enough, and there's much, much more. It's almost like remember that week when you had finals when you
Hmm.
were in college, and
Yeah.
that week when you had to just work day in, day out and do the all-nighters.
Right.
That's entrepreneurship, only that it's all year long.
Right.
I live my life as if I have final exams this
Mm,
week. I
got
don't
it.
I don't sleep well ever because I'm solving problems. I'm growing things. I'm
Yeah.
making decisions
Right.
all the time, every
Yeah.
day of every week of every year.
Sure.
So that's the kind of focus that you need. Eventually, you can start relaxing
Got
and
it.
take a little bit of time off. And but yes, focus
Diversify.
at first.
Yep.
The diversifying is not a good idea nor necessary in the
Makes
early.
sense. All right. These are going to be some rapid fire questions. We're almost out of time. Are you ready, Jose?
Sure.
Um, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that be?
To be more confident that things are going to be okay, not worry so much, and not not be so concerned,
Hmm.
and know that my working efforts are going to pay off.
Mm,
Know
love it.
that. I was very insecure about it in my early years.
If you could have coffee with any historical figure, whom would you choose?
Wow. That that is a very interesting one. Um, there are so many interesting figures throughout history, but
Think,
being I would love to talk to someone like Einstein
mm,
and get
there
my
you go.
brain puzzled,
Right. All
and
right.
ask
That,
him a lot
that's
of
a good one.
technical questions.
Yeah. If you were given $10 million tomorrow, not for your business necessarily, but just $10 million, do whatever you want. What would you do with it?
Well, that's a trick question right now because it wouldn't really change my life a whole lot. I would simply just put it in part of my same activities that I'm doing.
Mm,
I wouldn't do anything new. I
okay.
wouldn't invent the wheel. I would
Got it.
just roll them into my existing investments,
Got it.
add to
Yeah.
them. I wouldn't do anything different than what I'm already
Oh, that's
doing.
a good answer. Had a few guests who've said that it really wouldn't change anything, but not too many.
There's money has at some point loses its intrinsic
Mm,
value. There's only so much yes, you can have, there's only so many meals you can have and so many bottles of
Right.
wine you can have and
Right.
so many trips. And at some point, if you have too much of that, you
Hmm.
stop appreciating it. So even when you have it, you try to live the same way so that you appreciate those small pleasures.
Makes sense. How about a book or two that you could recommend for my listener?
Mine, mine, my, my two books. I have been, here's what I recommend rather than books. I'm going to go in a
Okay.
different direction.
Okay.
Um, because me being a very ADD, I've started a tremendous amount of books, but I rarely finish them because
Okay.
I get distracted. I get into something. Now I
Sure.
have young little kids between family and business. So what I do, and this keeps me very, very informed. Headlines, articles, choose some of the sources of information that you're attracted to for to stay active in politics, in business,
Mm.
in entrepreneurship, in innovation. I
Hmm.
have a number of things that I like to read, and I read articles
Hmm.
because I can get through those, I
Sure.
can stay informed and move on
Got it.
and and feel good about what I rather than just sticking to a book. I know this is unorthodox because it's recommended to read books, but I just don't have that type of
Yeah.
time and
No, I
focus.
gotcha. And I do hear some people saying it's healthy to not finish a book that it is not capturing your attention. It's hard for me to do to not finish it, but I've gotten better at saying, you know what, the timing isn't right for this book. I'm going to quit halfway through.
I
Um,
space out every time I start. I have
yeah.
incredible, uh, ability to space out when I'm
Mm.
reading a book, and
Mhm.
then I find myself reading the same chapter three times.
Yeah. Um, couple more. In your opinion, what is the role of luck versus skill in real estate success or business success?
I think there's a 50-50. If I had to give it, you need a little bit of luck, you need a little bit of timing.
Hmm.
Also need to have the right ingredients when that luck shows up.
Hmm. Mm.
So they are as important. I've seen people with zero skills, with zero work ethics, make
Hmm.
a bunch of money
Hmm.
because they were at the right time, at the right place, and they made a killing. But here's the real answer: luck is not sustainable.
Mm. That's a great
Skill
way to
is
put it.
sustainable. Luck is necessary for the right time
Hmm.
and right circumstances
Sure.
within a business. For example, when you're growing, if that market helps you and you get a little luck, or
Sure.
the market itself propels you to growth,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Right.
I need luck in every deal that I do.
Hmm.
And but when you have skill and knowledge about a business, you can diversify that into multiple areas of your business and have more probabilities of more
Success.
consistent success.
Yeah. Love
So,
that. That's a great way to put it. Looking forward in real estate or business in general, what are some emerging challenges that you see entrepreneurs facing?
the cost making the numbers work in real estate is getting harder to find because it is saturated.
Hmm.
There on one hand, there's still opportunities out there because markets are growing, they're expanding. But on the other hand, there's a lot of players coming in. So you have to differentiate, you have to outwork your competitors.
Hmm.
Um, but the numbers are getting harder and harder to make them work. When you buy
Sure.
rental income property, well, I remember in the earlier years, it was so easy to find an apartment complex, for example.
Yeah.
You could find it at land prices
Hmm.
and remodel them, fix them up,
Right.
refinance them. Now
Yeah.
they make it seem so easy.
Right.
These
Right. Yeah.
real estate gurus make it seem
Right.
like you
For
can do
sure.
it with your eyes closed.
Social
You could,
media. Yeah. Promotes
yeah,
that.
you could do it 20, 30, 40 years ago. You could
Right.
buy those and
Yeah. But now
refurbish
the
them.
margins are so tight.
Margins, yes. So the challenge is finding, for example, for me, finding land
Hmm.
that it's at the right price for us to develop it and still have what we call shovel-ready lots
Hmm.
at the price that we need to have them in order to build.
Got it.
So everything's getting expensive very rapidly.
Hmm. Got it. Um, Jose, what is one question that you wish I'd asked that I haven't?
None. I love your questions. They were very deep.
Great.
They make me think a lot, and there probably many others that we could keep
Yeah,
discussing.
for
But
sure.
no, I appreciate all of them. I think they're very well designed.
Okay.
The
Well,
problem, my problem is always to keep them short.
well, you have so much a wealth of knowledge that it's, I don't want to cut you off because it's just such good quality, content coming out. So, um,
Thank you.
but next time when I have you on, I'll try to make you cry for the first time in decades. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, I did do have one a little. It was a minor one, but when my I have twins.
Oh, okay.
Well, that
Yeah.
made me
Yeah. Kids
get a few tears
will do
when
that.
they were born.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
After so many decades, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I am having a hard time with that expressing that
Yeah.
side of my
No,
emotional.
I can identify with that. I get that. So, um, Jose Berlanga, where can our listeners find you online?
JoseBerlanga.com.
Okay.
I do have a YouTube account as well where I'm doing these fun interviews, and hopefully more we'll have much more to come. I'm working on a few presentations
Nice.
and speaking engagements. Hopefully I will be doing a lot more of that.
Sounds great. I can see why that would people want to hear you because this has been really good. And Jose, thank you so much for your time and for being vulnerable about the incredibly horrific accident that occurred at age 4 and the following the subsequent decades really of trauma and recovery that went along with that, and then also the being vulnerable about the ups and downs of losing everything multiple times in business, and just keeping it real. That's something that I just love to promote on the show. That entrepreneurship is great for some people, and absolutely, we don't steer people away from it necessarily, but it's no joke, and it comes with it's a roller coaster. And I know you've had many ups and downs in many different industries, and so this has been chock full of very good information, both inspirational content as well as practical advice. So, Jose, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate being here.
And to the listener, thank you for spending your most valuable resources with us, and those are your time and attention. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on From Adversity to Abundance. We hope today's episode has equipped you with valuable insights and practical advice to elevate your real estate journey. For more inspiring stories and resources, visit us at www.adversitytoabundance.com. If this episode has inspired you, please share it with a friend who could also benefit from our conversation. Together, let's turn adversity into abundance. Until next time, keep building your mental fitness and your real estate empire.